Hello, everybody. My name is Xidong Deng. I'm here today with Lisa Nelson to present the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Workflow Document, or EHDI profile. Next slide, please. The Early Hearing Detection Intervention program describes a national and statewide comprehensive and coordinated system that includes hospitals, midwives, audiologists, medical home providers, early intervention program staff specialists, and public health programs. One of the primary goals of the EHDI program is to ensure the newborn hearing screening is provided and documented for all infants born in the jurisdiction, and the data can be readily used for tracking and necessary follow-up purposes. As we can see from this diagram, this involves data collection from a variety of sources and data sharing and exchange across multiple disparate systems and players. Keeping track of this process and knowing where the information gaps reside in the newborn hearing screening workflow can be challenging due to the lack of a standardized approach of documenting the workflow progress and outputs and sharing this information among all workflow participants. The EHDI profile specifies a standard workflow to orchestrate the collection and exchange of newborn hearing screening information between clinical and EHDI program public health information systems. The purpose of this profile is to improve the way information is tracked and shared among all players in the newborn hearing screening process, which will ultimately improve the program outcome of ensuring all infants with hearing loss to receive recommended follow-up services and achieve their full potential. This profile was developed through joint collaboration across the PCC, QRPH, and IPI domains. Now I'm going to turn over to Lisa Nelson to talk more detail about this profile.
As Xidong mentioned, the EHDI profile is a workflow profile, and this is the most complex type of IHE profile. So we've focused initially on the simplest use case, where a baby is born in the hospital and hearing screening happens before the newborn is discharged. At the point of birth, the hearing plan of care is created, and at that point, the plan shows the newborn's hearing screening needs to be performed. As screening results are reported, they're recorded as completed in the plan with their associated results, or results explaining why the newborn was not screened can be recorded. At the point when the newborn is discharged, the plan is updated with the assessed outcome of the newborn's hearing screening, and other relevant health concerns or risks may be included. The hearing plan of care is then updated with recommendations to guide hearing care and follow-up. This technical solution is designed to orchestrate the activities of multiple systems involved in the process of delivering and tracking newborn hearing care. The workflow document is a single resource that any system can access to tell what steps in the newborn hearing screening process have completed or are in progress. The document also records who performed or is performing each step, and what information was gathered as a result of that step being completed. To make all this possible, the EHDI profile defines a workflow that describes how the information is generated based on the underlying process flow for newborn hearing screening. The workflow definition is described as a set of tasks that are completed or not in a certain sequence, and each task includes a related set of task events that are used to track the progress toward completion of the task. The task and task event specifications leverage the OASIS Human Task Standard, which is closely related to a well-known workflow standard such as BPEL or BPMN. On the left-hand side of this screen, you'll see the 4 primary tasks that are involved, and then within each task, it indicates the task events that are used to record the progress of each of the tasks, and you can see how the tasks are related. That's the workflow documentation. EHDI then uses the workflow document specification that's established by the ITI Cross-Enterprise Document Workflow, or XDW profile, to create workflow documents that record and share the progress of a newborn's hearing screening across disparate systems involved in gathering and processing all that information. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see a depiction of one of these workflow documents that it's a lot of detail, but in general you can kind of see that these tasks are the tasks that are being worked on. And here you can see that the update of the plan of care is in progress. You can see that here's an update of that document once the discharge happens, the discharge is completed, and then at that point of the discharge being completed, that task of updating the plan of care then can shift to completed. And so the illustration shows the workflow document as it's being updated over time to keep track of the actual care workflow. Document-based workflows depend upon a cross-enterprise document sharing paradigm, like a health information exchange, a single place that collects all of the documents that are being shared as information is gathered. And these documents act as triggers within the workflow. As new documents become available in the health information exchange, then the workflow document is updated. And the workflow document becomes a central resource that all systems can access to determine what care steps have completed based on the workflow definition, and what care steps can now proceed based on that workflow definition. The presence of particular types of documents are what act as the triggers to keep this document-based workflow going. And this slide just shows across the top here some of the different types of documents that are the information that drive the creation of that workflow document, and which systems or actors are responsible for creating those kinds of documents. The value of the EHDI profile, although it's very complex compared to some IHE profiles, is that it defines a specific workflow and the roles that different systems can play in making that workflow work across a larger continuum of care. Whether you use this profile to actually implement creation and use of a workflow document, or you use it simply to clarify the information flow that happens when integrating an EHDI system, this profile adds a lot of value and clarity around how the workflow needs to be processed. The workflow document itself becomes a resource that can be used to track all of the process steps so that a system can know who has done what and when. It can help determine when steps have not been done, which is a hard thing to find without a centralized resource like this. It's a way of maintaining references to the data inputs and outputs that are created as the flow of care proceeds, and it's a way to improve the way newborn hearing screening information is tracked and shared between clinical care and public health. It sort of externalizes a view of the data that collects as the process is maintained inside of some of these systems, and instead it becomes externalized in the workflow document so that all can process it. Ultimately, as documents like these exist over time, they will improve our ability to assess health outcomes for children at risk for hearing loss, because we'll be able to capture not only the flow of information along the process, but then determine what outcomes are achieved as a result of following that process. You can reference additional information that supports EHDI. The profile is available on the IHE website, and there are other standards within HL7 and within ITI to reference for that base cross-enterprise document workflow.